The US economy is dead, and there are many indicators to show this. I consistently cover it, and right now I'm going to take a look at the jobs that have been sent overseas and how this has put a real damper on the US economy permanently. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Right here out of the Weekly Standard, showing you over 100 million people in the US now receiving some form of federal welfare. This is really the statistics, and they're coming from the Senate Budget Committee Republican staff. Jeff Sessions heading that up, and you could see 100 million people. That is an extreme number that the government will never talk about, except for that few minority that are willing to admit the truth. Let's move on right here. This is talking about NAFTA. You know NAFTA. It's basically the way that they consider free trade, but of course it's not free trade for you and I. It is simply a means of pushing jobs overseas. And right here they said out of The Guardian, the promised trade surpluses with Mexico turned out to be deficits. Some hundreds of thousands of jobs were lost, and there was downward pressure on US wages, which was, after all, the purpose of the agreement. That's the way they structure these things. They say that they are beneficial to us, but of course they are simply not. Let's go on here. More than 845,000 specific U.S. workers have been certified for the Trade Adjustment Assistance, and that is as they have having lost their jobs due to imports from Mexico and Canada, or the relocation of their factories to those countries. So they actually set up the TAA specifically for people who have lost their jobs, and they are admitting to that, and then they will basically give them some incentives accordingly. And this right here is out of citizen.org, a very good document if you want to read it. And more on that right here, it says the average annual U.S. agricultural deficit with Mexico and Canada in NAFTA's first 2 decades reached nearly $1 billion, almost 3 times the pre-NAFTA level. So clearly, this is what's happening as we see jobs being shipped overseas, and we are seeing the deficits increase and increase in the US, all specifically because of NAFTA. Now, you can read more in this document. There's so many different points that show this and prove this with statistics, but I will move on very quickly here. This is talking about the manufacturing job, something that I talk about often. You need a manufacturing to have a strong middle class. That is very important in many different countries around the world. And look at this. They had previously 400,000 private manufacturing establishments, and then after NAFTA you have 56,000 of them being lost. That is a huge number, and something that continues to occur every single year. We have a major loss of those manufacturing plants. I wrote about it in my book, knowing how serious this problem would be, and I said this: high-paying manufacturing jobs are not being created because the developed nations are losing their business to the developing world. Now, that's specifically Mexico, but we also saw this happen with China, and we saw this with Brazil, where General Motors and other companies are actually being paid with our tax dollars to ship the jobs overseas. That's how this works. It is not free trade. They call it that because that is exactly what it isn't. If you look at the Patriot Act, it's anything but patriotic, that's for sure. So if we move on right here, this is out of CNN.com. Factory jobs in the 1980s. Back then, manufacturing accounted for about 20% of all jobs in the US. Now it accounts for less than 9%. That is a major decline right there. And of course, if they had those manufacturing jobs, they would find it easier to lift themselves out of a recession. But those numbers continue to decline, so it becomes harder and harder. So if it wasn't for all that QE, we would have a much larger decline, and you would see that. But of course, as long as they inflate the currency supply, it is being masked. So let's go on right here. These are a few charts that I'm going to show you right now. I'm just going to go through them. And right here, this is the manufacturing jobs, showing you how we're at multi-decade lows right now. And they cannot fake these type of statistics here, where we show you only a few decades ago we were at a high, and it has been declining ever since. And this is going to show you how we are not able to get out of a recession like this without some sort of strong middle class. The middle class is falling falling. I just mentioned to you how 100 million people in the US are on some sort of welfare type program. This is not looking good. If I go on quickly, civilian employment population, you could see how it has declined so rapidly since I just chose this year 2000 as a round number, but essentially we're looking at it taking a roller coaster downward, and it has been increasing at the slightest bit, but it is not going anywhere anytime soon. We need a major change to occur, and it is seeming that it is just getting worse. And again, right here, the employment population ratio for men specifically declining since 1950 on practically a straight line. It is not going anywhere. And that is it for this video. If you found it informative, please give me a thumbs up. And don't forget to become an insider. The Insiders is where I give out all my best intel for free, and that is available at themoneygps.com. You scroll down to the bottom, fill in your email address, and you get occasional emails from me with good, short, concise info.